right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Accelerating Integrations, How Yoti Built 70 Integrations in 9 months. I'm Libby Stengel, the VP of Customer Success here at Prismatic, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. We have a great webinar for today, but before we dive into how Yoti was able to build 70 integrations in 9 months, I have a few housekeeping items to remind you about. We are recording today's session, and you'll receive an email with a link to the recording of the webinar. Secondly, we love your questions. So at any time, if you have a question, drop it in that Q&A section, and we'll take a look at it and address as many as we can at the end of the webinar. If we're not able to get to your questions, we'll make sure to follow up with you after the webinar. And then lastly, we have 3 polls as part of this webinar. And with hundreds of attendees that we have today, those are some great data points that we're going to be sure to share with you in real time throughout the webinar. So please use that polling once I launch it, and I'll let you know when those questions are ready to be answered. We'll provide those results as we go through it. Now on to why we're all here today. Let's talk integrations. All right, so I'm very excited today to be joined by 2 integration experts, Altaf Hussain and Marcus Edgington. Welcome, guys, and thanks so much for joining me today. When we had the idea for this webinar, we knew we had to get Altaf as a panelist, because who better to talk about accelerating integrations than someone who built a strategy that did build 70 in 9 months. So I'm really glad to have you here, Altaf. Let's have you introduce yourself.
Hi, Libby. Thanks for that introduction. My name's Altaf Hussain. I'm Director of Engineering at Yoti, focusing on e-sign and SaaS. Really excited to be here and want to get cracking. I'll tell you a little bit about how I started at Yoti. Started as a senior software engineer in 2016, worked my way up to become head of and now Director of Engineering. And in every single role that I had, integrations touched it at some point. So I'm very happy to be here.
Very good. And Marcus, tell us about yourself.
You bet. Thanks, Libby. So the VP of Product here at Prismatic, and I've been involved with integrations in some form or fashion for most of my career. I started my software career as a business systems analyst, and my primary responsibility was to build integrations with internal tools. And since then, I've spent the better part of the last decade in product management for B2B software companies. And every B2B company that I've worked for has depended heavily on integrations to stay competitive. So I guess as someone that's had experience building them and building integrations and managing products that use them, I'm pretty familiar with the pain that goes along with it. So that's why I'm here at Prismatic now, helping other companies solve the challenges that go along with building those integrations.
Yeah, for sure. And as I mentioned, I'm Libby Stengel. I lead the customer success team here at Prismatic. I worked over 15 years in the B2B SaaS industry in post-sales teams like support, services, account management, and most importantly, integrations. So let's kick everything off with a quick poll. I'm going to click the launch button here in a few minutes. Our first question has to do with: what is the most important integration related goal you have for this year? And so I'll just kick this over to Altaf while people are responding to that. What is your goal this year in integrations, Altaf?
So this year is we've built 70 in 9 months. This year is to hone them, to improve them, and kind of get the product market fit. We built them so fast that our marketing team are like, wow, we've got a lot to do here. So building out the product sheets, building out how it will work and how we market it is kind of like what the direction is. But me personally, technically, it's all about honing the integrations and getting them working as they should. So that's where we are. And then we're going to build more. So just build.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got some results in. I'm going to end the poll now. Give you 5 more seconds to put in a result or put in a selection there. And let's take a look at our results. So the results are in that 25% of the attendees today want to build more than they did last year and build them faster. And also we have improved the user experience, which is just so critical to integrations to make sure they're seamless and a wonderful user experience. So luckily, we're with Yoti today, and we're gonna learn a little bit more about Yoti as they talk about how to build more integrations faster. So let's go on to Yoti. So let's talk a little bit about Yoti. So Yoti is an industry leader working with some of the biggest brands in the world for digital identity and age estimation and verification. Obviously, integrations are important to Yoti. And on this slide, you see a couple integrations that Yoti built. Altaf, can you start telling us a little bit about Yoti as well as why integrations are so important?
So Yoti is a company that allows you to prove who you are online. That's our mission, that's our goal. And we do it in a transparent, very open way. And our technology stack reflects that. We have 5 products mainly. So we have digital ID, reusable digital ID. We have age estimation and age verification, e-sign, and identity verification. These are our product suite, and as you can imagine, identity touches multiple verticals across the board, across industries, across sectors, and having an integration strategy was vitally important to making sure that we can deliver value to our customers and be where they are.
Yeah, great points, Altaf, and I couldn't agree more. We're hearing from our customers about volume of requests, and not just the sheer number, but sometimes the need to deliver very vertical specific integrations too for that. All right, so then let's talk about a little bit about, because we're here today because integrations are important, and it's just flat a part of your product offering for B2B SaaS companies. So Marcus, if you could walk us through a little bit around the expectations for companies that they're seeing around integrations.
Yeah, you bet. So, the software ecosystem for most companies is just getting huge. The average mid-market company is using well over 100 software applications. So I guess it's not surprising that integrations have become, an important part of B2B SaaS offerings. There's a ton of great use cases for integrations, but the most common reason that we hear about is that companies want data consistency across that large ecosystem, and they don't want their employees spending time dual entering data across systems. That's pretty inefficient and error prone. And so for many years, providing your customers with like a fantastic API was the way to help solve that. Here's the API built-in integration, but customers are now expecting their SaaS vendors to provide those integrations as out of the box, or basically features that are within their product. So that allows their customers to spend less time building those integrations themselves.
Yeah, and Altaf, what are you seeing at Yoti?
We see our customers wanting to use our products in various ways across multiple products, and they want to use it where they are, not where we are. So we've got SDKs, we've got APIs, we've got wonderful web portals, but that's not where our customers want to use our products. They want to use it in their own single pane of glass. So their CRM applications, their case management systems, and we have to adapt. And the only way that we can deliver the custom experiences that we want is by building integrations and having those kind of our products built into various other B2B SaaS products. So yeah, we're seeing that a lot. And that's kind of just an expectation from all B2B SaaS companies from now. I think 2024 is where we are.
Yeah, very much. The ability to say yes and provide them a single pane of glass, a seamless experience is super important. So that's honestly a big pain point we hear often from customers. They want to say yes to integrations, and then they want to make it really cohesive for their customers. So let's talk about our next poll. We're going to have the audience members participate. I'm going to launch it right now. The question is, what is your biggest pain point regarding integrations? So we've got a couple examples there. It distracts from your core development, adds friction to sales, slows down that customer onboarding, makes support less efficient, and that decreases that customer sat. So Altaf, why don't you talk through a couple of your pain points?
Well, I mean, like we're not an integration company. All due respect, I mean, you guys, but integration isn't our core business. We do ID, we do e-sign, we do identity verification. So distracting from core product development is probably the number one pain point. You know, you take your A team, the team that is really smashing it on the product, building out those features, and have to stop that to then integrate into Salesforce or HubSpot and another CRM to kind of you know, satisfy a customer need. That makes it harder to you know, deliver what you're good at, and that's probably the biggest in my eyes.
Yeah. So I'll give you a few more seconds here to answer those poll questions.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, Altaf. Couldn't agree more with what you said there. When I was a product manager in the public safety space, you know, I remember a time when we were spending more than 60% of our dev capacity, you know, on any given quarter just working on integrations. Wasn't necessarily something that I was interested in doing, but didn't really have a choice. It was necessary to build those integrations to, you know, win and retain your customer base.
Yeah,
All right.
that's definitely a problem.
All right, let's wrap up this poll here and we'll take a look at the results. All right, the results are in. And it looks like your biggest pain points are around distracting from your core product development. Yeah, and then followed up by decreasing customer satisfaction and increasing churn. Yeah, from my experience, those really are problems with big pain points, I guess, with integrations right now. And I'm going to stop sharing with that. And then Altaf, I know one of the things you mentioned in just your last segment there was that integrations aren't a part of Yoti's core business. So it's not where you want to have your team spend their time. And that's a big factor in your integration strategy. So I think that's a great point as we move on to kind of diving into those pain points a little bit. So here's the four main ones that we hear from SaaS companies. The first one is that you want your engineering and technical teams to be building your core product, not focused on integrations. You also want to be able to say yes to integrations during the sales process and make it easy to deploy integrations as well as because we know deployed integrations make sticky customers. And then maintaining integrations, building often isn't the hard part. And sometimes it's the hard part is figuring out how to easily troubleshoot and scale those integrations efficiently. And then last, I've seen firsthand the impact of poor integration experiences. Customers just want integrations that work. And that's table stakes for customer satisfaction in my experience. So Altaf, I'm sure before you had leveraged and embedded iPaaS, tell us how you were building integrations and how much time your team was spending on these.
So yeah, as I mentioned in the introduction, every role I've been in has touched integrations, whether it's been in a product capacity, whether it's been in an engineering capacity. So the pain points are evident in each of those business functions, and that culminates into time. So it was taking us 3 months minimum. The fastest I've ever seen it is 3 months. And that's not people constantly working on it. There's sometimes you need time to work out. You need to go away, read the documentation, figure out how you're going to integrate. And then you need to start to build out user stories so the product team get involved on how it's going to work. And then you need to build the thing, maintain it, deploy it. And then, yeah, it's out there, it's working. But nobody knows how to use it. So documentation. So all of that culminates in a lot of time spent. And that time is coming from your A team, your A players that are working on the product, detracting from that new feature that's going to make you, you know, your next reach your next revenue target. So you know, that's a massive pain point. And the POCs is another thing. So whenever you start building, you know, it's always a POC when you start building an integration. Oh yeah, right, that's a POC, works, let's ship it. And then when you ship it, a POC going to prod. I'd love to do another poll. How many POCs have gone to prod? So POC goes to prod, and then you end up with a poor customer experience because you haven't given the due time and process to developing something that will work and fulfill all the requirements. So that's definitely kind of friction, pain points, and that's where we were before sort of looking at an iPaaS solution and integrating with Prismatic, I guess.
And what was your breaking point? What was the thing where you went out to the market and said, we can't continue to do it the same way we were doing it before?
Like being involved, and I can pinpoint it to one RFP where, the question was, do you integrate with X and X? I'm going to paraphrase X platform, and not the Twitter X platform, but another X platform. I don't want to name drop. And the answer from us was no. Then that was it. The RFP was closed. We didn't get any further, even though our product was way better than everyone else's. We didn't have that one integration, and because of that, it kind of caused a stumbling block. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
All tough. I cringe when I hear you say RFPs. I spent a bunch of time working in the government space or selling products, software products to the government space. And when you're there, I mean, you live or die by the RFPs. So I'm all too familiar with that. And it's not, the RFPs are huge, and then a huge portion of it is oftentimes integrations. And so if you're having to say no to a lot of integrations, then you're just automatically not going to score well on those RFPs. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, and there's not the probably AI doing the RFPs now, receiving on the receiving end. So you probably won't even, there's no humans in there anymore. So you have to say yes. You have to get the yes with the yes, we can integrate, and then move to the next stage.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're talking about the ability to say yes. And then when you do say yes, if you put in front of a customer an extended timeline to deliver that integration, that causes a poor customer experience, as you talked about. Before you had leveraged an embedded iPaaS, Altaf, you had months. And in my experience, that's sort of what I've seen too. And that leads us right into our next poll question. Let's ask the audience. I'm excited about this question to hear what you have to say. I've launched the question so you can respond to this, but how long is it taking you or your teams to build integrations? Now, take it on average. I know there's simple integrations and there's super complex ones. Just take it on average where you think your team lands when they build an integration. Now, in my experience, it tends to lean into the months range rather than the weeks range. But I guess, Marcus, in your past roles, how long has it taken at your previous companies?
Yeah, very similar to that, and what Altaf was saying before, like weeks were common, not only weeks, but sometimes months. And that's just the development effort, right? And then you start considering, like Altaf said, there's so much else that goes into it. So it's like as a product manager, I'd spend a lot of time, speccing and understanding what the possibilities were of the other product, trying to define what we want that product or what that integration should do. So that's on top of the many weeks that you would spend just building integrations. And then that's not even to mention the fine tuning that comes after. Integrations are one of those things where you can test, and get as close as possible. But at the end of the day, once you get it out there, you start to learn some nuances to the product. So there's always follow-up work.
Yeah. And I'll give you a couple more seconds for the poll. Anything to add, Altaf, on the length of time it took you to build integrations before Prismatic?
Yeah, it's just adding to what Marcus was saying. It's never what you think it's going to be. Always add a few weeks, a few months on top. And it's, once you've built it, there's also the stuff that comes before and afterwards. The maintenance, the documentation of how it's supposed to work. And then that's when the marketing team can get to work, or whoever is selling it, or the sales team. So, it always takes longer than you anticipate. And unless you've got kind of a strategy to kind of deal with this, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah, in a previous life, I think we had some sort of philosophy of time times 30%, right? It was never where we thought it would land. So, all right, I'm going to wrap up this poll and we'll share some results here. And let's see the results. Okay, so for how long it takes you to normally build an integration, you guys did lean towards the month range rather than the week range, and you definitely know that it doesn't take less than a week. So that's great to hear that we're kind of on par with where you see your teams at right now. So then I'll stop sharing that poll results. So Altaf, you shared some slides with us on how you framed your integration problem and how you solved it. And let's walk through those now.
Yeah, sure. So the overall strategy, and we're going to walk through step by step. The overarching North Star will allow our users to quickly use Yoti products in the software they know and love, and we need to be where our customers are. And that was our North Star sort of goal. We needed to be where our customers are, and we still need to do that today. And I think that will resonate with every single anyone that's building a B2B software product, because your customers are the lifeblood of your product, and you need to serve them in the way that they want, rather than, okay, we built this cool thing and use it how we want you to use it. So that was it. And it's a bit of a no-brainer to kind of understand across the whole space. Integrations are so vitally important. Users expect connected experiences, seamless experiences, and they want all of their business tools to work together. And if you're not doing that, if you're not in the game, then you're on the sidelines. Next slide, please. So the question came up of, okay, we can go fast, but how can we do that without compromising? How can we build these integrations in a way that will give us high quality output, but also won't take ages to build? And that was kind of like one of the key drivers of we would always ask ourselves, how can we go faster, but we don't want to compromise on quality. And understood there will be trade-offs, and that's something that you have to understand. But generally speaking, how can we go faster without compromising? Next slide, please. So the strategy, and this is before we even knew about embedded iPaaS, embedded Prismatic, and any other sort of tool for this. So having a framework to build upon would be the engineering way. It's how we build and reuse. And coming from an engineering background at Yoti, a very engineering heavy organization, that was the immediate reaction to the problem. Like, we need to build componentized, productized integrations where we can build multiple components, join them together, and then out it goes. So that was the conclusion that we drew from all of this, was that we have to have a framework. We have to have a reusable way of doing these things. Next slide, please. And this was the kind of concept we came up, and this is our drawing, not Prismatic. This is my little kind of contraption. But you can see on the right hand side, you've got Yoti B2B products, and something we didn't know what it was at that point. It was, okay, we needed a tool to allow us to build these native integrations. So build once and run multiple times across multiple integrations across multiple products. So you can see Salesforce, Dynamics, HubSpot. That's just CRM, and that's us kind of building something that will allow us to get those points across. It's quite simple when you break it down, but you need to have a strategy, you need to have a plan, and you need to know what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve, and that this is all part of that. So I guess that is where I'll stop in terms of the strategy. So over to you, Libby.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about the productization of integrations, as well as building out that framework to go fast. And that's so important as part of your integration strategy. So once you had the overall vision, the next steps would be the great debate of build versus buy. So when you build yourself, you have a lot to consider, whether it's setting up webhooks, have logging in place, security, scaling. Altaf, you've told me that Yoti tended to build everything in-house. So talk me through the decision to move forward with Prismatic.
I mean, we build everything, almost everything in-house. That's the natural go-to solution to problem solvers, to engineers. Like, okay, we can build it. And to be fair, if you're building your integration from scratch on your own, it's probably going to be exactly what you need. But the problem that we faced was that it was taking way too long to get these wonderful things out, and we suffered from brain drain, where the people that built the integration left, move on to different teams, different priorities, and you know, it caused a bit of a spiral with all these integrations. We had to decommission some of them because we just couldn't keep up with the maintenance overhead. And you know, when we decided to buy, we did evaluate lots of different frameworks, and we talked about, you know, how we wanted things, how we saw the world in that little diagram. And there were very few organizations that could see the world through our lens and say, like, they were selling us integrations for us internally to build, you know, to link up our internal systems. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted something that we could use to sell our product to via integrations. That's the enabler. That's the point of this thing. So when we went out to tender, we looked at various sort of organizations, and we learned a lot. I learned a lot about iPaaS, and then it made me think about why we're doing this. You know, we didn't want to deprioritize our product work. There's such a big learning curve for every integration that if you had to look at every product, look at the documentation, figure out how it works with yours, you'd be there forever, and you know, and a day. And then the maintenance overhead. So these were things that definitely came to mind, and that's why we decided to buy. Buying has drawbacks, but you kind of need to be flexible. And if you can get that flexibility with buying an iPaaS solution, you do that. So I think the flexibility, that was the key in making, you know, the decision to buy. And when we spoke to the Prismatic team, and they kind of showed us how everything worked and the flexibility that it enables you, I think that was the deal clincher.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all thoughts, we hear that all the time from prospects and customers, and that, like, you know, they know they could build it, they know they could do it themselves, but you know, so when they do pick a platform, they want to make sure that it's not going to limit their ability as far as what they can do with the platform. And so, you know, Prismatic has put a lot of effort into making sure that we provide flexibility wherever we can. We look at you know, three pillars of our product being you know, the tools to help you build, functions that make it easy to deploy these integrations to your customer, and then the infrastructure to manage. And we try hard to make sure that we have as much flexibility in each of those areas. So for example, with building, we have a low code builder, but if you're not into low code building and you're maybe a bit more of a technical user that prefers to write code, we have a code native approach to building integrations. On the deploy side of things, you know, we have a marketplace that Yoti has leveraged to an out-of-the-box marketplace, excuse me, that Yoti has leveraged, and that's quick to implement. It's fast, but if you want to create a custom marketplace, or if you want to create a config experience in another part of your product, you absolutely can. And then on the managed side of things, I mean, everything at Prismatic is API first. So when it comes to managing your customers in Prismatic, or updating them, or anything, getting any information out of Prismatic about the state of your executions, you can get that either within app or directly into any other products that you're using.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from Marcus and you also too is that productization is important, flexibility is important. You need those two things to go fast and scale to 70 integrations. So let's talk about a little bit about the evaluation criteria when you went out to the market and kind of thought about it. What these were your evaluation criteria, Alta. Like, walk us through these quickly.
The strategy, sorry, just unmute there. The strategy always sort of led into, okay, we know we need to go fast. We need to be where our customers are. We need a reusable solution. So a framework, we called it. So what how do we evaluate all of these different solutions? So the first thing was we need to be able to build on it. It needs to be flexible. So what Marcus was saying, code native, low code and code native solutions. So you can plug into your CI/CD pipelines. You can put things in their appropriate place in your development lifecycle. And you create a reusable, consistent way of doing things, and that fits in with how you build software. Simple to understand. So TypeScript was using Prismatic was using TypeScript. A lot of our engineering team knew how to use that. It felt like home to them, so they cracked on, and it was a good balance between low code and code native, between the two. Cost effective. So when I did go out to these larger enterprise organizations, I don't want to name any names, but the ones that have like a donkey or can't remember something, but they had very, very high expectations of what someone was willing to pay for this kind of thing. And what we found with Prismatic, it was a lot more practical, and it was based on your usage rather than this big consultancy thing that happens before. So that was another thing. The last two was easy to maintain, which is such a big overlooked part of integrations. Once you build them, there's versioning, there's updating your integration once you make changes, but also when the product that you've integrated with changes. So the maintenance, always keeping on top of that, and having a way to pin versions is incredibly important. And the last thing is, it has to have sufficient number of connectors. They need to, like, if you're going to build on a platform, that platform needs to have at least enough connectors to make a difference in your given vertical. So for example, we went into HR space. Prismatic had 3 or 4 HR platforms already available for us to just crack on and provide ID to the HR vertical, and that could be across multiple verticals. So you need that sufficient number of connectors to make a difference.
That all makes sense. So what you're describing there, all talks, is exactly what we've been hearing from our customers for quite a while.
Yeah. So it sounds like at this point, also, if you identified the problem, you put together a strategy, you decided you wanted to buy and not build. So what's next? It's actually, how did you accelerate it? How did you leverage Prismatic to build those 70 integrations in 9 months? So let's dive deeper into that. Altaf, if you want to walk through a couple bullet points around how you accelerated those in an effective way.
Yeah, so once we decided that, okay, we're going to have a framework, we decided on Prismatic, then it was honing down on targeting a few integrations and going after them and building like a few base cases. So Prismatic has a really good low code designer, which allowed our product people to kind of come together and say, okay, this is how the flow should work. So you've got the domain level experts in the room talking through it, putting it in a designer, which we can see on the screen. So you say, okay, a trigger happens, then there's going to be some branching logic, and then it's going to fire off a request. Having the ability to do that, especially at the beginning. I mean, once you get the hang of things, you don't necessarily need this flow anymore. But at the beginning, when you're trying to get those first few integrations, and they generally take the longest, even with an iPaaS solution, the first ones are always hard, because you're learning and you're kind of implementing systems at the time of kind of trying to deliver something. But we found that we were able to write less code at the beginning and push the product people in the right direction in terms of, okay, this is how it works. These are the ways that we can use it, and let's build something. The next thing, I guess, was the marketplace, having a way for users to quickly come and on board. Prismatic offered an option to do like an iframe marketplace, drop it in. They also can do everything via API, but just quick route to market, and then getting feedback was our immediate goal as product folks. So we leveraged that and got it into our hands got it into the hands of our customers, and they provided feedback and started using it. And one interesting takeout of this is just by having the marketplace on our website, in our recent round of user testing, we found that it hit that RFP moment where, okay, they've got integrations. Yes, they have it. That was like a tick. Even though the users didn't actually go in and see what they did, it gave them confidence that this is a product that we can use because it's already integrating with other stuff. So the product team that are building this product know that that's important. So that was another key thing. So when we're building these things, being able to have a CI/CD pipeline, meaning that you write code, you push it, it goes through an element of testing, and it's deployed. Having development and production environments was important for us, and we were able to kind of do that. So once all of that infrastructure was made, we spun up a small team, and these were not product engineers. These were integration engineers focused on this. And we just gave them like a turbocharged Ferrari and said, here you go and get integrations. And that was it. And the prioritization came from customer demand and our strategy to go one vertical at a time. And that's kind of how we accelerated from taking 3 months to do an integration to building 70 in 9 months. And we could probably do it faster now. The next 70 will probably be a lot faster. So that's kind of the story of how things happen. I'll be interested to answer any questions on that, specifically around the strategy and how we got around to doing things.
All right, well, let's look at the end result of that strategy. Altaf, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
So what we're looking at is our marketplace on the left-hand side. So we built 70 integrations across all of our products. We've put several of them in our eSign marketplace, targeting Dynamics 365 in this case, Salesforce with Google Drive, HubSpot, and Salesforce individually. This was just a dream before we came into this, we started to execute on this strategy. It adds so much credibility as an organization for users to come and see, okay, we've got loads of integrations we can use. And what we also say is that if there's a custom integration you need, you can come and we can work that out. Because, I mean, anyone that's been in integrations more than a minute knows that no one integration is exactly the same. So even though customers will use it, will use Salesforce, they'll use it on a different object, for example, or in a slightly different way, a different trigger. And having the ability to deploy to customers a bespoke integration while still leveraging a framework was just an absolute dream. So that's the integration marketplace. And on the right hand side is just a list, or just a small piece of the list of integrations that we've built, and we still continue to build.
Yeah, amazing to see. Impressive, Altaf. Congrats to your team. And thanks for sharing your journey on how Yoti productized, accelerated, and reduced engineering time for integrations. Before we jump into the Q&A session, let's just do a quick review of the takeaways. And during this time, please put your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll get to as many as we can. But there's a lot of things we could have taken away with how you accelerated your integration strategy. But it sounds like these are roughly the top 3. Altaf, if you want to walk through them.
Yeah, being where your customers are, that was our North Star metric. A lot of the integration strategy is defined by how your customers want to use your products, and in what way. So what you integrate with depends largely on that. And it's hard to it's sometimes a chicken and egg situation. What do you integrate with? Well, what do you want us to integrate with? So just having a starting point and saying, okay, this is where our customers are. Let's build from there. That's one step. And the next is consider the full cost of integrations. Now, it's not just the building element, the maintenance, the retraining if someone leaves, the brain draining, the documentation, the marketing. You've got to consider everything together. As that's a learning that I have from going through this project. We needed to have more input from the end deliverers of the integration, so the sales and marketing team, right from the beginning. And with an embedded iPaaS, that's a possibility because it's easy to build and tweak and change these things, and you get the feedback loop. And you can literally sit on a call with a customer and smash out an integration. So that's something to be aware of, the cost and maintenance element of things in particular. And as I just alluded to, the flexibility is a must. You have to choose something that will enable you to build and integrations compartmentized, but also bespoke for each customer if you so wish. So I'm thinking more of enterprise customers. You wouldn't do it for the smaller sort of long tail type customers, but enterprise customers always demand integrations, because they need to make things faster. They've got KPIs on how can we do this quicker, how can we eliminate loss in terms of data transfer, how can we improve the integrity of our integrations. So the flexibility is the important thing here, I think.
Yeah, just to add a little bit more to the flexibility thing, we talked a lot about before about the flexibility as it pertains to how you interact with the platform, but it's certainly the ability, or you need flexibility to support all the different types of integrations you could be building too. So obviously there's the basics of making sure you can support synchronous and asynchronous webhook integrations, schedule integrations, all that kind of stuff. But obviously there's a lot of complexity with some of these integrations, and so you don't want to pick an iPaaS vendor that limits the types of integrations you can build. In Prismatic, we've made sure that's not a problem, because you can do things like add as many flows as you want, add as many connections as you want, many steps within a flow that you want. So it really doesn't matter on the complexity of your integration. We're gonna make sure you're covered there.
Yeah, that was a very, very good point there, Marcus. I think the flexibility is great, and one thing I didn't mention was the security aspect also. I think that's one of the key things, the key takeaways. One, we put the shoe on the other foot and put Prismatic through an RFP, and one of the things was you have to be SOC 2, and Prismatic have a SOC 2 report, and it was quite easy to get through an RFP, an RFI from our side. We have the lengthy processes that everyone else has as well, so that was good.
All right. Thank you so much, Altaf and Marcus, for those takeaways. I know we have a few questions from the audience for both of you, so we'll go ahead into the QA session. As a reminder, if you have any questions for our panelists, please submit them via the Q&A section, the button on the bottom of your screen, and we'll address as many as we can today. If we can't get to them, we'll definitely follow up with you after the webinar. So we have a couple questions already. Our first question is for you, Altaf. Yoti is likely has a lot of security and regulatory customers. How do you deal with integration security and regulations with your customers?
So one of the things is what we found is being transparent and saying what you can, can't do. Having SOC 2 controls, it makes your life a little bit easier, but getting to the nitty-gritty of where the data is stored, data residency, how long data sits in Prismatic's infrastructure as opposed to sitting in your infrastructure. You kind of need to understand that, and that's probably my advice. Just make sure you have your facts straight, make sure you have enough information to answer the questions, and then go into any meetings. Be prepared on that front. You will get asked, where is the data stored, data residency, do you encrypt in transit and at rest, what controls do you have on the kind of the Prismatic control panel, who has access to this. That's why CI/CD was so important, because the developers don't see anything that goes into prod. It just gets delivered, and there's a handful of people that can sort of deploy and make things live. So that's kind of my advice there.
Okay. Next question is for Marcus. How do you monitor large amounts of integrations effectively or efficiently?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our customers have like webhooks as part of their integration. So it's not uncommon for them to have like hundreds of executions going at any given time period or short time window. And each of these executions could be producing, tons of logs. And it's impossible to audit every single one of those. But you definitely want to keep on top of events that might be indicating problems with your integration, especially if those are going to do things like cause data to get out of sync between the two systems that are integrating. So Prismatic has a couple tools to make that easier to do. One is that we have this thing called alert monitors, and it's really easy to set criteria on what you want to be notified of. So it could be something as basic as, when does an execution fail? When is an execution overdue? When is an instance disabled? But you can also do things like some minor analysis of the logs. So, when I get X number of disabled logs, I want to send a text message or an email to somebody, and we support all that in Prismatic. But if you want, you can also stream all of our logs, or all the logs that Prismatic creates, directly into whatever logging system you're using. So if you're using Datadog or New Relic or something like that, those are great tools for not only alerts, but also doing some pretty serious analysis on large data, or large sets of logs. So we definitely encourage our customers to take advantage of that as well.
Good. Altaf, next question. Can you talk a little bit about how you justified the cost of buying a solution?
Yeah, so initially it's quite difficult. I had to put together the strategy and talk through it and explain. But when the execution element came, and when we actually started getting customers, one large customer could pay for the cost of your Prismatic sort of setup, or your iPaaS framework setup, as well as the team that is building it, because it opens so many doors, and all those RFPs that you said no to are now turning into a yes. So you move forward, and it kind of drives revenue in the fact that you're now you're in the game where you weren't before. So I think that's kind of something I would say.
Yeah. I know we've heard from other customers where they say one deal paid for it. And sometimes if you get into those enterprise deals and you win an enterprise deal, that covers any cost you might have with that solution too.
Yeah.
Question for Altaf. How many people were involved in the project?
So in total, there was about 4 of us. That's including developers. So one product manager, one me, kind of wearing multiple hats, and 2 engineers that were working on this. So not a huge team, and those engineers still had other stuff to do also. So we were able to do this with a very small, lean team, with clear objectives. And what we found is the engineering team, once they got the hang of it, they would come back with ideas of how, Prismatic just released a new connector. We can use it this way. Prismatic have now got sort of code native. How can we get that into our CI/CD and reduce the need? So I can talk a little bit about the CI/CD, I guess, a little bit more, but that's kind of how we built it. And I think you need to have a way to automate the deployment. and it shouldn't be a manual thing that's going to slow things down massively.
All right, so next question, Marcus, I think this is a good fit for you. With the marketplace from Prismatic, can we mix Prismatic integrations and our own, even if it's just links to our current integration pages? This would be so we can transition to an iPaaS and migrate our existing integrations over time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for the current, what we call out of the box marketplace experience, you can't do that currently, where you can say like, I want to put Prismatic integrations in a mix of some other ones that I had. It's a great idea, probably something we should consider. But what we do suggest for customers that are going through that transition period is to keep their existing marketplace for a while, and then you can leverage our APIs to put the Prismatic integrations alongside your other integrations. And so what that does is it allows you to create not only a listing alongside your other integrations, but you can still take advantage of everything else that's available in the marketplace, like the entire config wizard experience. So when they click on that listing, they're going to get the Prismatic config wizard experience. So that's been what we usually recommend to customers.
Great. This question is for you, Altaf. One of the attendees would be very interested in a few details around your CI/CD pipeline and the separation of test and production.
Yeah, so we started building prior to the code native deployment on Prismatic, and what that would mean is we'd build in a designer, and then we'd export XML files, commit those to Git. That would then be triggered into a CI/CD pipeline that would, using the Prismatic CLI, Prismatic CLI then deploy to the development environment. And we use the development environment as kind of like a place where you can build tests and see how things are. Because they're so well structured, you don't really need any more environments. You've got one environment where you can test, and then once you're ready, you merge to a different branch, and it pushes to our production instance, which is completely separated from the development, and it's just code that gets deployed and that goes and gets deployed. So that's kind of like the CI/CD flow, quite simple and effective. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so last question, and we'll wrap up for this morning, afternoon. Altaf, what are Yoti's plans for the future? I know we talked briefly in the beginning on your integration goals, but could you give any more insights on what's next?
Well, we want to increase the number of integrations that we have across the board for all of our products. We've just had our Yoti sign. We've been building so much on Prismatic. We have the Yoti sign component, so any Prismatic users can go and use that. So that was a good achievement for us. But I guess in the long term, it's to be where our customers are and deliver really tailored, seamless experiences across ID, age, and eSign. So that's what I'd say. And our age estimation product being inside Prismatic and the current way that's being developed and being used, that's something that we're going to be pushing a lot more. So that's what's coming next. So keep an eye out on that one.
Very good. All right, and at that question, we're at time here, but thank you everyone for your insightful questions, and thank you Altaf and Marcus for your insights. Hope you find information from today helpful. We are hosting another webinar on April 18th called How to Level Up Your B2B SaaS Teams Integration Capabilities, where we leverage both low code, code native, or both. Marcus will be joined by Prismatic Solutions Engineer Jake Hagel for that one. Keep an eye out for the link to register. Hope to see you in April. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.